chimney tops, that's where you find someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me somewhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
The words of Psalm 121. Esayenai el heharim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, Oseh shamayim va'aretz, al yiten lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha, hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha, Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yayach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikora, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzetcha uvorecha ve'ata yad olam. Esha enai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is our guardian, our protection at our right hand. The sun will not strike by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard us from all harm, guarding our souls going and coming, now and forever. In an attempt to create order in what he perceived as a chaotic world, one of our biblical poets, Kohelet, wrote, L'kol zman l'kol chefetz tachat hashamayim. These are words that are even more familiar in English. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and even a time for dying. The time of mourning is a complicated one, filling with so many emotions and memories. Historically, Jews have sought and received comfort from the most ancient words of poetry, our Psalms. So I invite you to join me now in Psalm 23, the English translation. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God leads me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. We have an understanding of our own biology that is better than of any preceding generation. We have seized our enhanced appreciation of physics to travel to the moon and send satellites beyond our solar system. And yet, despite Kohelet's attempt at imposing order, with every secret revealed, the marvels and mysteries of our world grow deeper. It was Kohelet who also wrote that no one has authority over the life breath. Perhaps it is in knowing our own limitations, in recognizing what is beyond our comprehension, that we can come closest to the divine. A modern poet, Ruth Whitman, wrote, "If my boundary stops here, I have children to draw new maps of the world. They will draw the lines of my face. They will speak my words, thinking they invented them. They will invent me. I will be planted again and again. I will wake in the eyes of their children's children, and they will speak my words." Henry Emerson Fosdick, a prominent and outspoken 20th century American pastor, not a rabbi, but still we can learn from him, reminds us in what has become a fairly well-known essay about how the seas of Israel can serve as a metaphor for living. You see, the Sea of Galilee in the north and the Dead Sea at the far south are comprised of water from the very same source, the Jordan River. This water flows down clean and cool from the heights of Mount Hermon and the roots of the cedars of Lebanon. And yet, despite this common source, the Sea of Galilee makes beauty, while the Dead Sea makes nothing. Why, we might wonder, is there such a dramatic difference between these two seas created by the same source? The Dead Sea is so far below sea level, it has no outlet. Water flows in, but it can't flow out. The only water that leaves is through evaporation, leaving it so overly saturated that it is unfit for life. No fish, no vegetation, flora or fauna. It is surrounded by desert. Nothing grows in the Dead Sea. Its name is apt. Nothing lives there. In stark contrast, the Sea of Galilee is resplendent with life. It is lush, and the region surrounding it is rich with flora and fauna. Same water source, the Jordan. What causes such a dramatic difference? The River Jordan flows into the Galilee just as the Dead Sea, but is also able to flow out. Unlike the Dead Sea, it not only receives, it gives, and it does so freely and as easily as its currents allow. I never had the opportunity to know Elaine Meller in life. The Mellers' relationship with Congregation Kol Ami has been primarily through Rabbi Jerry David, who, if not for being out of the country, would be here today. I have only come to know Elaine through the loving memories of her husband, Stephen, and their two children, Wendy and Eric. So, truthfully, I'm not sure if Elaine ever had the opportunity to visit Israel and its seas. It didn't come up in our conversation yesterday. But it is clear that even if she never once dipped her foot into those waters of the Galilee, she lived her life like them, full and resplendent with life, being open to receiving as well as to giving. Born to Sidney and Ann Auerbach in 1947 at a time of growing optimism for the Jewish community as it sat between the end of World War II and the birth of Israel, and raised in Yonkers, New York, Elaine was the middle child. Her brother Marty, Zecher Livrocha, 2 years her senior, and her sister Susan, 15 years her junior. Her parents moved to Northeast Philly in search of better neighborhoods and schools when Elaine was a junior in high school. And though they wouldn't meet until after his service in Vietnam, fate would have it that both Elaine and Steve would graduate in the class of 1965 from Northeast High School. When I asked Steve to tell me about Elaine, he immediately and quickly exclaimed, "She was a dynamic woman. She took care of everything and everybody. He admits he never had to lift a finger. He earned the money, and she took care of everything else." It was a traditional division of labor that may seem out of date in today's world, but it is one that served them really well for well over a half a century. Steve and Elaine met in the fall of 1969 at BOFA's, did I pronounce that right? At BAFA's in Belmont Hills. As Steve described, the spell was cast the minute he saw her. Fresh off his service in Vietnam, hanging out with friends, he turns and notices in his words a stunning woman right behind him. I actually edited his words a little bit. They talked, and there was an immediate connection. He asked for her number, and if he could call, she said yes, and as they say, the rest is history. They were married a year later on September 12, 1970, and within 4 years had grown their family to 4 with the births of Eric and Wendy. Elaine and Steve built a beautiful life together. Steve working in and eventually taking over as the 3rd generation in his family's roofing business, a business he is now passing on to the 4th generation. And Elaine, or Mrs. Roofer as some called her, took care of home and family, as well as their connections to their social circle of friends. Elaine was a cook and a baker. According to Eric, her cooking was, and I quote him, second to none. Her motto, "Come hungry, we'll feed you." And for Elaine, this wasn't just a quip. She meant it. Family dinner time around the table was sacred time in their home, meant for coming together and being together. On Sundays, those dinners extended out to extended family. And parties. She loved to entertain friends in her home. Her annual New Year's Day parties are a perfect example of her generosity of spirit when it came to entertaining. She'd cook a large turkey, prepare all the fixings, bake an array of sweets, and open her home freely to friends and family. It's a tradition her daughter now carries on, with the modern twist of making it a potluck. Elaine didn't just love the cooking, though, and nurturing through food. She really loved to celebrate, to have joy in her midst. Birthdays were always a cause for celebration, and as her family shared, she never let anyone forget her birthday. This may sound at first glance a bit self-centered, but for Elaine, I expect it was all about savoring life's special moments and sharing them with all those she cared about. How do I know this even if I didn't know Elaine? Because her family also shared. They loved to celebrate her. Think about that. They loved to celebrate her. She was the epicenter of their life. As Steve shared, he'd give her anything she wanted, even that $1,700 bag and its matching purse, because he loved her and didn't want to deny her even the simple material pleasures of life, knowing that they could afford them. Elaine was not only a loving and beloved friend, she was equally a loving and beloved mom, always present for Wendy and Eric. As I shared, Steve and Elaine took on traditional roles in the home. Elaine being what we might call a stay-at-home mom. Yet the way Eric and Wendy describe it and the relationships with her, the stay-at-home part seems certainly a misnomer. As Wendy described, Elaine was her adventure partner. Both she and Eric have wonderful memories of adventures in Mexico, Acapulco, and Las Vegas. I'm sure there are more that they didn't share. Playing slots, seeing shows, even taking a Lamborghini tour through the desert. Elaine didn't stay at home, but she was always present for her family, enjoying life's moments with them. She modeled how to live fully and engage with life. It really is no surprise that Elaine was active in the Red Hat Society when she lived in Margate. According to their website, the Red Hat Society, and I quote, encourages women to get the most out of life. How fitting for Elaine. Though arguably she gave as much as she got out of life. How she beautified Margate, for instance, with her award-winning gardening, serves as an example. The last 5 to 6 years of Elaine's life were filled with incredibly difficult health challenges. Diabetes, cancer, strokes, a broken leg at the worst time during COVID, dementia. No one should have to endure such ongoing challenges as she and her family did. Getting care often added to the challenge, as Elaine was, as her kids put it, medical avoidant. I wonder if her avoidance of medical intervention was her way of facing the reality of mortality. Perhaps there was a part of her that felt if she ignored her symptoms, she could just keep on going, living her life, loving her family, her children, her grandchildren, Jonah, Jacob, Albert, and Sienna, really the lights of her life, without being a burden. Perhaps she just wanted more time to celebrate with friends. Perhaps she just wanted more time with her beloved Stephen. Watching her suffer was, in his words, worse than his time in Vietnam. While there were so many times when medical care seemed to be, as Wendy put it, a hot mess, leaving Elaine to feel far less a part of life than she yearned to be, in the end, hospice care, coupled with the loving presence of family, allowed Elaine to depart with dignity, grace, and a spark of kedusha, of holiness. Wendy and Eric In your own ways, you each helped your mom and your dad through these last months, these weeks and days, with a level of courage, strength, and compassion we should all emulate. Truly, you exemplify the mitzvah of kabed et avicha ve'et imecha, that of honoring your father and mother. Even as you mourn the loss of your mom, continue to be present for your dad. He will need you, and you will need each other. 20th century poet Rabbi Alvin Fine reminds us, to the living, death is a wound. Its name is grief. Its companion is loneliness. Whenever it comes, whatever its guise, even when there are no tears, death is a wound. But death belongs to life. As night belongs to day, as darkness belongs to light, as shadows belong to substance, as the fallen leaf to the tree, death belongs to life. Alvin Fine also teaches it is not our purpose to live forever. It is only our purpose to live. I believe Elaine understood this. It is of no added merit that one lives long. It is of merit only that their life was good. And there should be no doubt among us, Elaine's life was good. She was feisty and stubborn, and she was incredibly sweet, generous, and caring. May we be inspired by her, by the beauty and generosity she extended into the world, and by her eagerness, like the Sea of the Galilee, to take life in and to give life. Zichrona livracha, may her memory endure always as a blessing. I invite now those who knew her best, her children, first Wendy, possibly accompanied by Sienna.
I love my mom so much, but she was really sick. And even though that happened, I would never, ever forget about her because my mom helped me and my whole family did. And I love her just so much. And Charlie up there will take care of her very goodly.
Good morning. For those that do not know me, I'm Elaine's daughter, Wendy. My family and I live in Florida. Having lived out of state the last few years while my mom's health was declining was very difficult. I would have been by her side a whole lot more if life didn't get in the way. I just want to recognize a few people that to me help fill in some blanks for our small family. I just need to personally recognize Sheila, Mark, and Rhonda. Whether it was by phone or in person, your time with my mom meant the world to me. She loved all of you, and you all held special places in her heart. She would tell me every time she saw or talked to you. You officially earned Wendy's Unsung Hero Award. I have almost 50 years of experiences with my mom, so bear with me. I'm going to share some Elaine stories. You want to stand on the stool? No? Okay. My mom and I would laugh and say, she taught me well, from flea markets to Bloomingdale's. I can't tell you the countless times we would wake up before dawn, her station wagon loaded, and off to the flea market we went. You would get there maybe at Roosevelt Mall, and customers would start hunting your trunk for clothes before you even got the table legs down. 25 cents, no, $1. 50 cents, sure, sold. I remember sometimes thinking, what if I told someone something wrong? I now know it's a flea market. You can't go wrong. And the real treat was skipping school and making the journey to Columbus. She always took me to the same McDonald's for a big breakfast on the way. Yes, I ate the big breakfast. And we would go to the market. It was in her blood. My pop-up and Uncle Marty were already there selling light bulbs. I felt a little famous there, having to say hi to the surrounding vendors and sometimes customers. Even though we may have needed a new bulb, that's not why we came. We came for pocketbooks and perfume and whatever other amazing knockoff items we could find. Those were the days, and probably for a lot of us. After putting my thoughts down over the last few days, I realized that the Bloomingdale's part didn't come with any memories that stand out. So make sure you take your kids to flea markets. They are the memory makers. Let me tell you about some of my experiences in Spanish Harlem. I taught there early in my career. Well, one time my mom came to visit me in New York City for the weekend. She slept at my apartment with me for the weekend, and it was a very cold weekend. So we decided it would be perfect for her to wait till Monday to go back to Philly, and she had her car. Normally, I took the crosstown bus to work. That day was a rare treat. We were going to drive there. My mom was going to come visit my first grade students. I was so excited to have her as our guest. So we got up early, and we drove from 110th and Broadway over to 116th and Lexington near my school. And I drove, and I looked for street parking. I find a spot, I park, I gather some of my stuff, I get out, and I come around the car to gather my mom, too. And remember, it was a very cold weekend. Well, here we are, about to go to PS7 in Harlem, and only my mother would think it's apropos to go in her full-length fur coat. I was stumbling over my words. Mom, we're going to see kids that don't have much. Some put food in their pockets for their siblings, literally. Mom, this is really not the right look. I was mortified. She told me there was no way she was leaving her fur coat in the car parked on the street, and besides, it's cold out. I was thinking, how would I even face the staff and walk in the door with my mom and her fur coat? Well, in the door we went with my mom and her fur coat. That was my mom. She loved helping my students and hearing about them. My first teaching job was in Philly, in the Badlands. My students had some rough childhoods. Drugs and poverty were close to home for these kids. The school I taught at provided swim lessons because we were housed in a community center. So all my kindergartners brought their suits once a week and received lessons in the pool, except my Tisha. She was my tiniest student, sweet and quiet, and her shoes were too small. That's a story for another time. But my mom knew the name my Tisha well. Unfortunately, my Tisha's mom never sent her with a bathing suit. Well, my mom decided my Tisha needed her swim lessons too. She went and bought her a bathing suit, and my Tisha then swam every week. And every week, I brought her little bathing suit home, and my mom washed it for her and sent it back with me. I knew my mom loved doing that. We kind of kept it on the down low, and I think little 5-year-old my Tisha naturally did the same. My parents would donate to all kinds of projects and causes for kids I worked with. As you've heard, my mom was a baker. She baked the best chocolate chip cookies. She made them. Sometimes we'll call her from work and put in his order. And sure enough, she would whip him up some fried matzah anytime, or perhaps Eric's favorite, pudding pie. Whenever I came home from college or Florida or for any holiday, A full-course meal was waiting on the table for me. She loved feeding me. What would you expect? We're Jewish. And she always had frozen cups of matzo ball soup ready, too, in the freezer. If we were supposed to be fasting for a holiday, she would tell my dad, Wendy isn't fasting. I made her brisket and kash and bow ties. She loved makeup, jewelry, perfume, neon, long nails, sequins, gold, and diamonds. Her favorite color was green, she always told me, because it's the color of nature. Me and the kids loved calling her from the car. The best was when Albert would say, "Hi, Mom," in his cute little voice. And she would say, "Hi, Sienna." My kids would giggle, and he would say, "Mom, it's me, Albert." She loved watching The Price is Right, preferably with Bob Barker. She watched The Young and the Restless religiously and would record it on her VHS tapes back in the day. She always gave benefit of the doubt. She genuinely believed tabloid magazines. I was actually pregnant with Albert and Sienna the same time William and Kate were pregnant too. She called me one time. "Did you hear? Prince William and Princess Kate are having twins too." I would silently smile and then ask, "Mom, what is your source?" Even if I explained it 20 times, she was still a loyal tabloid junkie and always had hope in their stories. When my parents got married 53 years ago, they said their vows. When we all recite the part about in sickness and in health, my dad honored that eternally for my mom. Even though my mom was a diabetic, in the end, we let that go. He would visit her daily and bring her chocolate, sodas, steak sandwiches, and as they would say to each other, an egg sandwich. That must have been their own Yiddish language. Even last week, he took her for a drive to Uncle Bill's, and they sat in the car together so she could go for her ride, get fresh air, and her favorite hot dog, fries, and a shake. As hard as it was to take my mom out places, my dad kept giving her little field trips. We should all have a man like my dad, especially in sickness and in health. My mom was small and elegant, but she was a fighter. She fought longer and harder than she should have, but she was determined to hold on to life and to enjoy her time with her husband and to keep being Eric and Wendy's mom and mum to Jonah, Jacob, Albert, and Sienna. And a good friend to so many friends. I know we all still treasure our memories. Please pray for me. I have very big shoes to fill. Not only do I have to keep up with baking, cooking, organizing, and looking good, those shoes need to be blinged out with all kinds of sparkle. Thank you. You want to sing? Okay, let me move the stool over. Come down. We're going to have a song by Sienna.
I made a song called Fly High. Fly high, Mama, in the sky with me. Don't fly that high, don't let me go. I want you to stay with me. Please don't fly that high, but the invisible string will pull my heart. I'll always see you in the world. You are beside me. You are with me. I will always remember you with me.
While they're returning to their seats, I'll invite her son Eric and her grandson Jonah up to share their memories and loving words.
Hello, everybody. I should pull this up. Okay. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming today, and I appreciate everyone, especially my friends, my grandmother's friends, my family. I have something I wrote down on my phone. Yeah. My mom, a woman who knew how to have a good time. She loved the casino, the flashing lights, and the sounds of the slots. She always had a cigarette in hand on the porch, drinking a nice cold glass of lemonade. Whether it was watching My 600-Pound Life or My 90-Day Fiancé, I always had the time of my life, every day being with her. Every day was a new adventure and a great one. I'll always remember how every weekend she would come to pick me up and we would go to McDonald's and order large fries and drinks. And by the time we got home, we ate all the fries. And something funny was the McDonald's was right down the street. She loved people, loved spending time with her loved ones, laughing and joking and enjoying each other's company. She may be gone, but her memory lives on in the stories you tell and the memories you cherish. And though you may miss her deeply, know that she will always be with you in your hearts and in your memories. I still hear the sounds of Paul Anka and Frank Sinatra playing in the car while I was sitting in the back listening with her. A life lesson I'll always remember that my mom taught me was that I should always be true to myself and never worry about what other people think, and to always be kind and treat people with respect. My mom was the most amazing person ever, and I can't find any words to describe how great she was. She made my life better, and she made me into a better person, and she made me into who I am today. She always made everyone happy, and I always promised to do that and live on with her. Now, this is a quote that reminds me of my mom from one of her favorite musicians, Frank Sinatra. I faced it all, and I stood tall, and I did it my way. I love you, Mom, and I promise to live on and do my best for you, and I know you'll be waiting for me up there when it's my time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. This is one place that I didn't want to be standing for a long, long time. To my sister Wendy, what you've done in the last few days and being there with Mom as she departs, I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for all that you've done, and I appreciate you as my sister, and I love you. And no matter how much time passes, when we see each other, sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning the other night, it's like no time passed. And that bond that we share will always be. Thank you, Sam Scholar, for helping us with all of this. My dear friend in the audience there, Jameson Lazarus, thank you for your support and your love and your kindness towards my family and your unwavering offers and extent to be there for us for anything we need and for me. To Colamy and TBS, thank you for your support. The rabbis, the canner, we appreciate it. I cannot say enough about Samaritan Hospice and how they took care of my mom and made her ending peaceful. And as awful as the last few years were, she went out, as I would hope she would, quietly and gently into the night. And you, Dad, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think you do need to be acknowledged because what you've done in the last couple of years, your display of strength and courage and unwavering devotion to our mother and to our grandmother, as I like to call her over the last few years, Mom. We couldn't have asked for a better father or mother. I love you with all my heart, all of you, and I'm so thankful that you've been the role model that you are, not just to me, but to my sons, to Albert, to Sienna, to Sam, and to Wendy. You are a blessing, and Mom was a blessing, And don't ever forget that. Mom, or as I called her, Mum. The Queen has left the building, the one and only Mrs. Roofer. A little bit of this and a little bit of that, some of the old and some of the new. Mum, tough and wise, soft and gentle, in no particular order, always classy and manicured, floating like a feather, everything extraordinary. Don Rickles and Buddy Hackett live in Atlantic City, just Mum and I, up close, the perks of her love for the slots, comps. Bob Dylan up close, Dad and I, another perk of the slots played by Mom. And let's not forget the Moody Blues. The list goes on. Multi-generational family recipes, both cooking and baking at its best. Oh, Mum, our tummies will miss you. A participant in the Don't Be a Litter Bug movement as a child, she would parade around New York, Yonkers, with big signs on her front and back saying, "Don't be a litter bug." Not chocolate, but chocolate. Chocolate. Throwing stones back to the sea. My mom should have been a landscape designer. Living 5 minutes apart, we spent many, many evenings together on the week and weekends. I would stop and see my parents, and we would hang out after work, and it was the best, whether it was for a meal or a drink or just a talk or a cigar with my father. Having them close like they were, that's a blessing. Jonah Meller, the oldest of the grandchildren, he got the ultimate mum experience. And what I witnessed with my mother and my son is priceless. And I am so thankful that you got to experience that. I spent my Shabbats with my bubby, my father's mother, and sometimes I would go with my mama and papa, my mom's parents. And I appreciated the closeness we shared as a family, and I appreciate it now more than ever as I stand up here before you, and I look at my children and my niece and nephew, and I think about the mum experience that they got. And while it wasn't long enough, I'm thankful that they got to experience that. McDonald's, as you can see, is a theme in our family. It's real. My mom loved McDonald's. We all love McDonald's. Jonah had the ultimate mum McDonald's experience. Coke, donuts, junk food, trips. Jonah Meller had the rock star life because of my mother, and I'm thankful for that. It was always a party when those two were together. Light and shadow, we find ourselves in each other. Mum, kind and embracing, watching us from all around now. A blessing to those loved by Mum. The days are long, but the years are fast. Her kindness will radiate from within all of us that she loved. Going where the chilly winds don't blow, Mum, as I told her. Going where the chilly winds don't blow. Planets, scattered seas, and moonbeams, starry skies, music to our ears. Light of gold. In the silent night, you'll be drawn to the water, there to be your guide. Mexico, beaches, the sweetest devotion, Mum. Sing me back home, Mum. All the boys are waving, trying to catch your eye. The light to anyone's life. Magic moments with Mum. Ghost towns in the Nevada desert. Mum, Dad, Jonah, and I blasting through the desert in a Lamborghini. I told Mum and Pop that one day you're going to go 150 in a Lamborghini, and I made that happen. Lake Mead, a party bus on the Vegas Strip, relentlessly herself, honest with integrity. Now she's with Jerry and Jimmy and Jim, Kurt and Janice and Pigpen too, hopefully in a Leonard Cohen afterworld. Mum, rest well, peacefully and blissfully. Forever in our hearts and souls, thank you for being you. Mum, always love, love always, Mum. Thank you all for coming. My family and I appreciate it.
Rabbinic tradition teaches that the tears shed at the passing of an Adam Kasher are so precious to God that God counts each and every one of them and stores them in a divine treasure house. We might ask, what is an Adam Kasher? Why not Chashuv, an important person, or an Adam Gadol, a great person? When the word kasher is applied to a person, it implies integrity, goodness, a life lived in the spirit of Judaism. It includes a life of involvement with family, service to community, as well as reverence for life itself. Arguably, today, God's treasure house is overflowing. I invite everyone able, whether in mind, body, or spirit, to rise for the memorial prayer. El male rachamim, shochen b'mromim, hametzei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, b'ma'alot kedoshim u'tahorim, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת יצר רחל בת זני ואן שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה אנא בעל החמים הסתירה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to the soul of Elaine Meller, who has now entered eternity. May her rest be in paradise, O God of mercy, let her find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she always rest in peace, and let us again say, Amen. You may be seated. Interment immediately follows this chapel service at Locust Wood, after which the family will be sitting Shiva at the home of Stephen 13 Matlack Drive in Centennial Mills. There will be Shiva Minyanim each evening tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday evening at 7 p.m., and I know your presence would mean a great deal to the family.